Welcome to Atlanta Motor Speedway, where the track has just opened for an hour and a half of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice for Sunday's Kobalt Tools 500. 90-minute practice session and qualifying later today on speed. Beautiful day at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Write that down.
Yeah, look at that. We are actually, that is blue sky. And we're in Atlanta at the racetrack.
That's not blue.
Stay that way for 3 days.
That's not blue screen.
No,
it's not just the blue backdrop.
It's the real deal.
That's blue sky. Hi, everybody. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, and Darrell Waltrip with you for opening round of practice. When we last spoke to you on Fox last Sunday, we had engines blowing up, transmissions popping out of gear, tires with too much grip. And so we just come to a place that's the same, only faster. Well, now what do we do?
I do think that it was a wake-up call last week. I think it was a wake-up call to the crews and the drivers about things that happened on pit road during the race. I think it was a wake-up call about a sustained RPM, especially in the Roush Fenway camp. And I think that teams are starting to get their arms around. The thing I'm excited about, if you go back 1 year ago, the tire situation here was a complete debacle. I think we are going to have a good tire, good weather, and good racing here all weekend.
So how easy, Darrell? Just put last week behind you, and here we go.
Well, you know, I can explain a couple of things. If we set a track record here tonight, then we'll have engine problems on Sunday. You just
They
do the
go
math.
hand in hand.
We set a track record with a COT in Vegas. And so the cars were fast. They were running faster. And remember we were looking at the tacks in the car, and you said, am I seeing 9,800? I said, there's no way.
If we break a track record here, I'm going to the inspection process because it's 198 miles per hour around here.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll be somewhere in the range of.
Oh, boy.
But anyway, yeah, pit road problems. I think they started at Daytona with Matt Kenseth. People keep watching Matt get in and out of the pits, and he's always picking up spots. I think these crew chiefs are on the driver saying, man, do it like Matt does it. Do it like Matt does it. And you heard Jeff Gordon in California. I'm coming down the pit road the same speed he is. Right. How's he beating this? There's a lot of pressure on those guys in the pits.
Interestingly, the track record holder, if I'm not mistaken, is entered in this race. Not only is he entered in this race, but he was at last week's race as the catch can man for his younger brother. Go figure.
Well, his car is parked outside of the garage area on the road out here that runs along behind the garage area. And I've been watching Jeffrey Bodine back there working on that 64 car all morning long. And you know what else he's doing? He's a PR man. Every time he sees somebody walking by with a briefcase, he was stopping them and talking, hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
We've talked about Matt Kenseth, will save the Las Vegas analogies, but his luck just ran out last week. And watch this off turn 4 a lap or two ago.
That's just classic COT right there. Snap loose right on the exit of the corner. That's that push loose. Got a lot of wheel in it, a lot of speed. That back end will swing out with you every now and then.
And that was only his first lap on the racetrack. He's only run 1 lap. This is his second lap he's working on right now.
Now we have amended our Fox speed ticker across the top of the screen. Let me see an example and I'll tell you about it. There we go. Look at that number 6 on Scott Riggs. He is 6th fastest. You see that chip with the number 6 is in yellow. That means that he, like Travis Kvapil, who is 9th quickest, has to make this speed on time. So as we go through practice, that will help keep you up on the go or go homers. Their position number is backgrounded in yellow.
And we have 47 cars here, so 4 cars will have to go home.
And I was shocked last week when Travis Kvapil didn't make the race at Vegas. That surprised the heck out of me, because that 28 car's been pretty fast.
Now here they are in numerical order. We'll show them to you later on in the practice session in the order of their fastest lap. But as mentioned, 4 of these drivers will head home today. Still pretty strong field.
Yes,
here we are 4 races deep in the season. I don't think any of the go-or-go homers made all the races. Tony
would be the only one.
He's guaranteed in.
Yeah, we had 4 teams last week that had made the first 2. We had the 66, we had the 28, we had the 36 and the 41 that all made the first 2 races.
Allmendinger?
Allmendinger, it was, well, but he has made all 3.
Yep.
It's exactly
That's
right.
The one.
Yep.
Here is one who made the first two and was disappointed last week, Jeremy Mayfield.
And they felt good about their car in practice, but they hit those dreaded bumps down in turn 1 and 2 and just shot the car up the racetrack.
Got some more bumps here this weekend, too.
Now missing from the West Coast swing were the Wood brothers of Stuart, Virginia, but they and Bill Elliott, who is the hometown hero when we come to Atlanta. Matt, they're back.
Mike, they are back, and Bill Elliott's home racetrack 5 times. He's gone to victory lane here. The famed Wood brothers 12 times. They have found victory lane here in Atlanta. Now, you mentioned they took off the West Coast swing. 12 races is on their docket so far in 2009. They could add races later on, but right now, that's what's on their racing schedule. They built a brand new race car here for this weekend. So much attention to detail has been put into it. Leonard Wood said, simply, it's a beautiful piece. And one other detail I must mention, Mike, you talked about the weather, short sleeves and sunny, not just Friday in Atlanta, all weekend long. So far, Bill Elliott on the left side of the scoring, 23rd fastest to Dick Berggren.
Kyle Busch, Rowdy they call him, is the hottest driver in NASCAR right now. Remember last year at Atlanta, everybody else complained about how hard the tires were, how hard it was to drive these cars. Busch did no less than lead more laps than any other driver and win the Sprint Cup race. He also won the Truck Series race. He was in position to win the Nationwide race when a parts failure sent him into the wall. And at one moment in that Nationwide race, he led the points in all 3 divisions. He has picked up 2009 right where he left off. He's already won in all 3 divisions. They had a practice this morning for the trucks. He was the fastest guy in the Truck Series. And not so incidentally, he won last week. Car 18, a big favorite.
And you know what's interesting about Kyle Busch is right now Jeff Gordon holds the record for the most Sprint Cup Series wins before the age of 25, and that's 15 wins. Kyle Busch does not turn 25 for over a year in May of 2010, and he has 13 wins. So I would say he's pretty much in line to break that record.
And there's been debate all week on Listen to Sirius Radio or whatever you listen to about him being one of the all-time greats. Well, you know, we can't say that right now. I mean, he hasn't been around long enough to be one of the all-time greats. He's currently one of the best in the sport. We know that. Now, here's a guy in a 24 car that I'm certainly sure will be considered one of the all-time greats.
Absolutely.
But you talked to him at Las Vegas, and what did he say about Kyle Busch?
He said the same thing that all of us say. If you know, you don't have to be a fan of Kyle Busch's to recognize that he's a talented driver. And then the question becomes just how talented is he? Well, according to Jeff Gordon, and I'm going to put my name on that list too, he's the most talented driver that's come through this sport in the last 30 years.
Wow. And what's more remarkable about that graphic, the drivers under age 24, most Cup drivers that I remember didn't even have a Cup ride by age 24, and some of them by age 34. See that decal? I got a feeling that's going to make a lot of drivers angry as they see it through their windshield looking ahead at that 18.
Good night, Gracie.
Speed's coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice is brought to you by the auto parts experts of AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. And by Touch of Gray from Just for Men. Speaking of Touch of Gray, Mark Martin tops the speed chart.
Yeah, he's picking up right where he left off last week. You know, he led both sessions last weekend. Ended up kind of getting smoked off in qualifying trim, but nonetheless, he had a fast car in practice.
And just for our director, Artie Kempner's sake, Mark Martin did not do the tire test here. So just wanted to make sure and clear that up. Actually, they did a test in January with Greg Biffle, Juan Pablo Montoya, Sam Hornish, and Scott Speed. They did 3 tests here since we were last raced here.
Like the right rear's either stiff or just got it to where it's driving off the right rear too much back in the gas.
Thoughts of Tony Stewart?
Now, see, that's an interesting way to say the car is loose. You know, I mean, most drivers would say the car's got too much right rear spring and I'm loose. But it's a little different explanation for what he's feeling. More information, which could help make a more specific change rather than just throw another spring in it.
Darrell, I believe you were hanging out with this cat here last night, wasn't you, Casey King?
I'm telling you, we went over to Wild Bill's, and I went with Casey and Elliott Sadler, and Dirk Bentley had a concert over there last night, and it was for Casey's foundation. And I don't know when I've had so much fun. I mean, when you get those guys away from the racetrack and just kind of out and about amongst the fans were having fun. Dirk's is great, and Elliott is, you know how Elliott, he's always
always upbeat and having fun.
He's on it all the time. It was a good little evening we had. They made a lot of money for the foundation, for children's foundation that Casey supports.
Casey 34th on the board. He is this is his 9th lap of practice. Dale Earnhardt Jr. 43rd after a run of just 3 laps, Dick.
Yeah, and he has told the crew that he really doesn't like the car, Mike. They are pretty much starting all over again with setup tires on it. They've got it on the scales. Junior is out of the car, walking around, and there is no smile on his face at all. This car is not behaving well, despite the fact that last spring when he was here, he had a great run. Started second, finished third, led 62 laps, but they've got some work to do.
And we just had a shot of the 2 car. The guy second quick on the board right now. I saw smoke coming out of that car, Larry, as it came off turn 4, and he shut it down. He's been coasting back to the garage. Not sure if something happened.
He ran one time. He ran a total of 3 laps with this 2 car. Talking about Kurt Busch there coming on to pit road. Saw Pat Trice and his crew chief climbing down off the hauler a second ago. Talked to Carl Edwards' crew chief, Bob Osborne, this morning. I said, Bob, we've been going to Las Vegas for 11 years, and it's always been a 400-mile race. They had to make it 427 this year, didn't he? Because he blew up coming to take the white flag.
Yeah, he had a 425-mile motor.
Yep.
There's a number of tires. In my mind, what made a difference at Vegas was tires. You know, I mean, I know the guys have refined the cars quite a bit, but I think that may have been probably the best. Ooh, and Carl gets bad loose right there. I believe that was the best marriage of tires, car, and racetrack I've seen in quite some time. The tires were excellent, made super grip. They were fast. Nobody had a problem.
Well, so who do you feel worse for, Matt Kenseth, who blew up on the 6th lap, or Carl Edwards, who had to drive all day and blow up with 1 to go? Or Jack Roush, who owns both those cars?
I guess I feel the worst for Jack.
No more calls. We have a winner. Watch for the Mike Phillips ambulance and record at turn 1, Brick, when the Hall of Fame opens in 2010.
He's signaling he doesn't like his name said on television.
I've been working hard to get him a race. He was the hardest man in racing right there. Hardest working man. Nick, what'd they find out about the 2 car, buddy?
Well, the tire that's just rolling backwards out of the garage right now, Darrell, explains where the smoke was coming from. A little bit of a body rub on the left rear tire is the culprit. The car is in the garage. They've made some adjustments to move the rear end over a little bit further to the right, banged on the fender, and he should be just fine.
Good for him. I was a little bit worried with the engine issues they had last week. They don't need any engine problems again.
Well, I think everybody's a little gun shy. You know, is there a major team that has not been touched by these engine troubles this year?
Yeah. And it always, there's always a common denominator.
Yes.
The common denominator in my mind, and we talked about this in Vegas about the Toyota engines, was oil pressure. These guys have gotten carried away with this oil pressure thing. No, low oil pressure to qualify, low oil pressure to race, less turbulence in the engines, lighter fluids, more horsepower. These engines aren't made to run 500 miles with that kind of conditions. So I think Toyota figured that out.
I'm reading one of the beat writer's blogs because his newspaper won't let him put everything he wants to write about auto racing in the paper, so he's got a blog, and it's very well read, talking about a charity race on gaming consoles, and they were doing laps at Las Vegas Speedway, since that's where the race was last weekend. And he said he went into turn 2 and gave it the full Logano. Smacked it off the wall and beat the bogey time and won $100 from New Hampshire Speedway's Jerry Gappens for charity. donation for his favorite charity. So Sean Pershane with the Hartford Court, congratulations. Giving it the full Logano will probably end up in our lexicon somehow, somewhere.
I don't know. I think I like to give it the full Almendinger myself.
But I tell you, I was proud of Joey Logano last week at Las Vegas. You know, he qualified about mid-pack, finished 13th, led some laps, pretty clean race car. After the race, really did a nice job at a racetrack that he had 0 laps on before they got there on Friday.
Yeah, mission accomplished.
Exactly. And Greg Zippodelli told me, as crew chief, said, you know what? Right now, all we're looking for is just good top 20 finishes. If we can do that, you know, then we can build from there.
Let's check with Matt Yoakum.
Mike, it's a story we've been following since Daytona and Speed Weeks. Tom Baldwin Jr. forming his own race team. Scott Riggs coming on board back here at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. So far, so good. The car is 7th fastest. They've got to qualify their way in. Scott told me the car is pretty good. Still a little too free. They're working on that right now, but they have such a following, a whole group of fans each Friday up on Long Island watching our coverage, trying to keep an eye on this Red Bank Outfitters number 36. So far, 7th fastest on the board.
You know, we talked about the Goodyear tire at the top of the show, and directionally, they've done the same thing with the tire combination here that they did at Las Vegas. It's not the same tire as Las Vegas, even though they're both 1.5-mile tracks, but they've changed the construction. It's a softer sidewall, left and right, but I think the biggest thing they keep doing, which you can get by with it, and it really helps the way these cars drive, they're softening the compound on the left side tires, not the right side, and that's letting the driver feel that left front tire when he goes through the corner.
Yeah, the teams, the cars have evolved. They keep making, you know, new generation car. We hear that every week. New cars, and Goodyear's had to, you know, kind of do the same thing with the tires. They've had to kind of find out what you can get away with on this car, and they've been on either side of it. I think last week's the first time they nailed it, and I feel pretty confident they'll be good here too.
And it's a moving target, because who could have anticipated Indianapolis last year with the team skewing all those cars down the straightaway so they're in yaw 100% of the time, and the resultant tire problems there. Not Goodyear, not anybody could have anticipated that until they got there. So it is a moving target, and they're chasing it hard and doing a good job, as Denny Hamlin right now is 18th after 8 laps in this session. Brian Vickers has climbed to 3rd.
Yeah, this guy has got to win a race before long. I mean, he's messed around. You think he likes his kind of racetrack. Think about Charlotte last year, 1.5-mile racetrack, high bank, fast. This car's sitting right on the verge of winning a race, I think.
They're definitely in race trim right now. Like Mike pointed out, he's run 9 laps working on 10. If you notice down in turn 1 and 2, he was right around the top of the racetrack. Now in 3 and 4, he was around the bottom. Of course, when we go to qualify, these cars will pretty much be running right around the bottom.
Dick has more.
Yeah, I agree with Darrell Waltrip. I think Brian Vickers is due to win a race, and I think it's going to come soon. He was 8th last week despite electrical problems, an engine change that made him start all the way in the back, a battery change during the race. And Larry, you're right, he's working on race setup right now, but that won't last long. They're doing a couple of tweaks to that race setup, and that's what they're working on to see how they work. And then they're going to come in and put the car into race setup, and we'll see just how fast Brian Vickers can go.
And kind of notice that in 1 and 2, he's going to run high. Well, the reason you run high in 1 and 2 is because of the bumps and the dips that are down low in 1 and 2. So you want to work the car above all that and stay out of those dips and bumps. 3 and 4, oh yeah, she's got plenty of grip right on the white line, right around the bottom. So you run high 1 and 2, then you bring it down to 3 and 4, and you drop it right down on that white line.
Fastest lap differential right now, it's about 1.5 seconds from first to about 40th. A little less than that, 1.4. But there is 1 second covering the first 22 cars.
And I think when everybody, we got a caution actually on the Speedway right now. Don't really see anything. Must be a piece of debris or something. But that gap, I think, will close once everybody gets in qualifying trim.
NASCAR wanted to have a look at something, I believe, on the front straightaway. So that's after just missing a win in Daytona, Kyle Busch was the dominator in Southern California. And tomorrow, Kyle Busch and the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series are in Atlanta, where things always get a little rowdy. Racing the way it ought to be, live tomorrow, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, only on Speed. Now this morning, to guarantee us great weather, Larry stopped by the Weather Channel and was a guest on the show Weather Today. And he got to give the weekend forecast.
That was pretty cool.
What is the weekend forecast?
The weekend forecast is exactly what you're seeing today. A duplicate tomorrow, a duplicate on Sunday. If anything, it's going to be maybe a little warmer on Sunday. But that was Kelly Cass that I was working with. And I think when I talked about that the low pressure is dragging that cold weather up through the Ohio River Valley on up into the Northeast, I think she's going, where did he get all this information?
Took it right over, right? Well, good. It was so good, I heard they replayed it later on this morning.
I did hear they re-aired it a couple times. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed going over there. They're great people over at the Weather Channel.
The thing I cannot understand, of course, maybe let me rethink that. A man that knew absolutely nothing about the weather in 1992 has become such a expert on the weather in 2009. Now
you've answered your own question. There's a reason I pay attention now.
Here's Todd Bodine.
What's sad about 92, you didn't need to be a weatherman. You just needed to be able to see.
Oh, golly.
Yeah, the cold front that's pushing through the booth right now.
It's a little cloudy in here right now. Look, a little stormy.
Never mind the Ohio River Valley.
That was $1 million forecast.
Yep.
We'll tell that story one day again.
We always tell that story sooner or later.
Once in a while. You know, Mike, we were talking about Kyle Busch earlier, and I'm going to get Bill Sloboda, our statistician, to find this out. He has won 13 races. But they have absolutely been at 13 different racetracks. He does not have a repeat win. I guess I'm wondering how many other drivers in their first 13 races, in their first 10 races, won at different racetracks. We'll have to put him to work on that.
Probably nobody. Bill says nobody he's looked up lately.
Yeah.
You know, that's really interesting. I don't know if you go back to the Junior Johnson days or Tim Flock even.
How many wins did you have, Darrell, before you had a repeat win at a racetrack? Do you know?
Boy, that's hard to say. Bristol comes to mind, and you know we won a lot of races back to back there. The Coke 600, I won 2 in a row there, but I can't really say for sure.
Now, of course, back then NASCAR did have a lot more racetracks they ran on back in the 1950s. So it's possible somebody won at 13 different tracks, but it's unlikely.
Their first 13 wins.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure there.
Trying to look and see where Kyle Busch is actually on the speed
34.
That's the reason I couldn't find him. You normally don't look that far over for
right.
Kyle Busch.
Well, he went out in his truck. First time out in his truck, he was kind of not happy with his truck. He came in and personally worked on it. He and Doug George, his crew chief on the truck, they got up under there and they beat on something. I don't know what they were doing. It come around Herb Nebb and Kill Yarborough, but he got a big hammer and beat on something. He went out and put it on top of the sheet. So whatever, maybe they need to do it to the car.
If you go down in the truck garage now, everybody's beating on the truck with a hammer.
A lot better. Drivable at least.
You know,
Loose. Early, way early. Like out of the gas early. And then
he's gaining support. I heard a fellow almost in tears on Sirius Radio this week saying that he went in this week and bought himself his first bag of M&Ms that he's had in a long, long time.
Wow.
But he figured the young fella deserved it.
He is a wheel man.
Welcome back to Atlanta. About 1/3 of the way through this practice session as one of the hometown favorites, David Reagan, flashes by. Here's the 09 of Mike Bliss, who is one of 4 double-duty drivers this weekend, along with Todd Bodine, Kyle Busch, and Kevin Harvick. He's running the truck race and the cup race.
He's getting a little bit more out of that old car than Sterling was able to get out of it. He's up in the 26th spot. Not too bad for the old 09 car.
What's important, though, he's in front of 4 of the Gorgo homers. At the end of the day, come qualifying, that's all that matters. Yeah, this car has not qualified yet. They actually had Brad Keselowski at Daytona, did not make the Daytona 500, and then Sterling Marlin missed the next 2 races. Mike Bliss drives full time for this operation in the Nationwide Series for James Finch.
Sometimes it takes a couple of drivers to convince some of the people and other people that maybe we need to do something different to get this thing going a little faster. And then Mike Bliss is the beneficiary of some of that information.
True. David Reagan is 27th in this session. He has run 10 laps in his Ford.
You know, Mike, you had mentioned about this being a 500-mile race, and certainly this race track and this race can be hard on engines too. But I think the difference we'll see here is once you get into a run with the surface here that's deteriorated, you start to have give up with the tires. The car starts sliding around. That's the reason you see them move way up to the top of the racetrack. So the RPM only stays up there for a short period of time in each run, versus at Las Vegas, it just never slowed down that much.
Yeah, and I mean, if you know much about an engine, you've got to back off the engine for the engine to be able to suck oil up into the bottom end of the engine. When you back off the engine, it creates a suction inside the engine that'll oil the bottom of the pistons, all kind of things that are inside the engine. But if you're just constantly winding it up, that engine never gets that brake or never gets that oil, and it's going to take its toll on something. Junior Johnson used to tell me all the time, Daytona and Talladega, burp that throttle every now and then and oil the bottom of that engine.
What is it he asked you one time?
I was leading the race, driving as hard as I could go, and he said, Durrell, you oiled the bottom of them pistons lately?
Skirts.
Skirts. You ordered them skirts lately? I know what he's talking about. I thought he lost it. He said, let up on that thing every now and then, let that oil get up on them skirts. Okay. He's the same guy who told me to pass Earnhardt now.
Right.
That worked for you.
I didn't work out good either.
Probably had better luck oiling the skirts.
I could do that.
David Stremme is 13th fastest.
I tell you, I think this is another little old driver that has already caught some attention, which he just about caught the attention.
Yeah, right.
Too well. But he's had some good solid runs. Darrell, it just looks like that the nature of the beast right now is just loose. Everybody's fighting loose.
And it looks like, as I watch the cars, they're kind of all rolled down on the right front, like they are sitting on that right front bump stop, and then the back of the car is just hanging out almost. I know Dale Jr., when I saw him go out, the car was laying on the right front, and the back end was just dancing around. So I guess got to tune up the bump stops and get the timing better.
Another of the hometown Atlanta area drivers, Reed Sorensen.
They've got work to do though with this 43 car. All 47 cars have at least practiced, and right now he's 44th.
And you know, everybody gets all there's 2 places you go where everybody gets all jacked up: Daytona and Bristol. People can go to Daytona and have a great run and say, "Oh man, they got all their problems fixed. They're going to be great." That doesn't happen that way always. Ryan Newman comes to mind, and even this Richard Petty Motorsports Groups come to mind this year. Bristol. Guy go to Bristol, stay out of trouble, stay on lead lap, get a top 10 finish. Say, oh, they've turned their program around.
Elliott Sadler, Kenny Schrader.
Yeah, those are just
every year.
But those 2 places
that's funny.
are not always indicative of how the rest of your year is going to go.
Well, let's consider the Petty organization, or what used to be Gillette Evernham and Petty Enterprises. Whoa. You know, of their 3 top finishes in Daytona, 2 of those were kind of Dame Fortune had a lot to do with it. They were on pit road. Caution comes out. They take off. They don't have to come back in the pits, and they gain huge track position and gain top 10 finishes. Now, they earned it. I mean, there's no discounting that. They did earn it. But the road to the finish line was a little different than that taken by some of the other players.
Now that car right
there you go.
I can tell you one thing. He didn't luck into anything with that car. He won every one of them.
A Dodge
I was
Charger.
there for about 100 of them.
It was piloted by the king, Richard Petty. Join thousands of other fans online during the race. Fire off your questions, comments, or talk track smack. SpeedTV.com editors and NASCAR insiders will join to fill you in on what's really going on. Go to SpeedTV.com, look for the chat link. NASCAR on Speed, be there. Dick Berggren has the driver who is third quickest in this session as we have a look at Clint Boyer's new colors for the weekend. I think he won a race painted up like that.
Won Richmond
last year. That's right, won Richmond. Let's check with Dick.
Well, you guys were talking about the old days when to make a car or a truck go faster, a driver would get out and beat on it with a hammer. I'm with Brian Vickers, and he has been out of his car for about 15 minutes, and all he's done is key data into this computer. How about it?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm actually watching you guys on here as well. I can watch it.
You're watching our broadcast on your computer.
Yep.
But I assume you were also keying chassis data and observations that you felt in the car into the computer to share with your team.
Potentially.
Huh?
Maybe. I can't. That's classified information. I can't tell you that.
It is such an interesting thing because the very next car over is Mark Martin, one of the senior drivers here, shall we say, at age 50. And he has spent the same amount of time talking to his crew chief as Brian Vickers has spent talking to his computer. But the engineers are also looking at their computers, so they know what Brian's saying too.
Well, it's interesting with the Red Bull organization being up to their neck in Formula One and other forms of motorsport that whose followers feel are more sophisticated, let's say, than NASCAR. All of that computerese and technology is rampant in those series, which is why it costs hundreds of millions of dollars to run a car there. So, yeah, why not?
And just remember last week when Brian was sitting in his car and they had dropped a TV screen down in front of him that he was sitting watching the practice, and that had timing and scoring all right there right at his disposal to look at any way he wanted to. So Matt, what have you discovered in the technology age of the racing world?
Well, a lot, DW. Starting off with Bobby Labonte, he said, wow, not once, but about 4 times, trying to describe just how free this number 96 machine is. They're going to swap over. He chauffeured him to school, part of the Ask.com Safe Search School program. You'll learn more about that on Sunday with Chris Myers and Hammond at the Hollywood Hotel, as we'll preview that along with so many other things. But they gave away $10,000 for new computers. It's a great program, and I'll tell you what, when young Will looked out the window and his entire school, Mike, was lined on the sidewalk with signs welcoming he and Bobby to school, it was a sight to be seen.
I'll bet it was. Huh.
You know, that finish that Bobby had last week at Las Vegas, finishing 5th, that was his first top 5 finish since 2006. It had been a while.
Wow.
You know, and Larry, another thing that I think might be happening to these guys, last week, what do we hear over and over and over and over? This track has got some grip. These tires have got some grip. Well, guess what? You're not going to get that here. And so all that grip you had last week, you're going to have to get back up on the wheel this week and start cranking on it.
Should be a different animal no matter what tire they bring here.
Elliott Sadler, 41st. So apparently whatever malady is affecting Richard Petty Motorsports,
well,
it goes pretty much down the line.
All but one car, A.J. Allmendinger. But remember, he's a car that has to qualify on time. They're more than likely working on qualifying.
Yeah, I just watched him make that run, Larry, and he was on a qualifying run when he did that. And, I mean, he was hooking it pretty good, too.
One change in the top 5. Pop Marcus Ambrose up there into 5th place. Mark Martin, Kurt Busch, and the new name in the top 5 is Carl Edwards, who is 3rd, with Brian Vickers 4th and Marcus Ambrose 5th. Jamie Mack, Juan Pablo, Casey Mears, Scott Riggs, and AJ in the top 10.
Yep, I think this is a race that track that Carl loves. I mean, we stood up here and watched him win that race, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago now, when he passed Jimmy Johnson on the outside with the worn out tires, and I said there's no way he can keep driving like that. Drove it right to victory circle.
Sure did. Swept the weekend that weekend.
He did, and so I'd say if I was going to pick a winner this weekend, I'd have to go with Carl.
And that was his first win in both divisions, both the Busch Series and the Cup Series.
This is a 500-mile race, and like I said, these cars are not going to handle like they did last week. Well, you can see that 2 car moving around right there.
Coming in, it's just too loose. Even up the rear springs, cross weight. Bad news.
What he's saying is even up the rear springs. These cars traditionally have been running I'm just going to use a number, 1,000-pound right rear spring and about a 200-pound left rear spring.
Wow.
So you get that great big spring split, makes the car really turn free through the corner. But depending on the tire and what the stagger is, and that car is loose, you got to even those rear springs up a little bit. Maybe go to 1,005 or 6, or come down on the right and up on the left a little bit.
You know, normally when you go to the second race of the year at Auto Club Speedway, the same cars that ran well there runs well at Las Vegas, and the ones that run bad at Las Vegas. As we watched Marcus Ambrose, she mentioned Mike 5th quickest, but we just saw Jeff Burton in the 31 car. That was a huge surprise. They struggled so bad at Auto Club Speedway. They finished 32nd, and it wasn't because they had any issues. That's just how bad they ran. And to come back last week at Las Vegas, led some laps and to finish 3rd. I was talking to Scott Miller, the crew chief for Jeff Burton this morning, and they were ecstatic that they were able to rebound that well from that bad run at Auto Club Speedway.
Now, I heard there was a pretty big meeting right after that race over in Welcome, North Carolina, and some people were not all that welcome that they came.
And here's a team who needs to rebound. Travis Kvapil missed the show out in Las Vegas for Doug Yates and Max Jones.
Like I said, that just was a big surprise to me, because we know these guys, they make a lot of horsepower, and you know, they usually qualify, and I would have never thought would be a problem for them.
I think it was another one of those cars.
Yeah, that felt a lot better.
The difference was didn't get through those bumps in 1 and 2.
Yeah.
That sent a lot of people home.
It did. I guess you'd have to say that drove that first turn, got in there a little too hot, and then hit the bumps, and man, that killed your time.
Kvapil is 14th right now, but most importantly, he's 3rd on the go or go home list. While this car, Jeremy Mayfield, has a lot of work to do.
They do. Yeah, they're 46th of our 47 cars. The only car that's slower is Jeff Bodine in the 64 car, who's 47th.
Bill Elliott, 2nd in line for the Champions Provisional, should it be needed. 27th overall, 7th on the go or go home list.
You know, Matt talked about the success that the Wood brothers have had here. Bill Elliott has had a lot of success here. This will be the 100th race at Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend.
Wow.
And Bill Elliott, he's attempting to make his 60th start here, and he also has 6 wins here at Atlanta.
I think what's really helping them this year, they back to what the Wood brothers were always famous for, picking and choosing. Not running every race, but when they show up, look out. Because David Hyder has built them some new cars. Talk about them being detailed out, really nice pieces. That's the way that works for the Wood brothers.
Top of the board, Chevy, Dodge, Ford, Toyota in that order. Mark Martin, Kurt Busch, Carl Edwards, Brian Vickers. All separated by about 2/10, and there is Denny Hamlin, who has fallen to 24th. He was 18th last time we saw him. Again, most likely still working race runs. Some of the drivers have been out making mock qualifying runs, and we'll see a lot more of that in the last 40 minutes of this session.
It's good to see that 07 car is sitting there 9th. Casey Mears, he's in the top 10. And
Like, yes, Mr. Johnson, you can just keep rolling right on out. At your own pace, you're going to be the only car on the track, 10-4.
I tell you what, there's not very many Friday practice sessions before qualifying. At no point during the practice do you see the 48 car back in 25th position. Normally they're always in the top 5 because Chad Knaus comes out of the truck, especially when the forecast is good like it is for race practice tomorrow, and they are normally in full qualifying trim. There's Chad up on the top of the hauler.
I'd say this is a no-nonsense run right here, personally.
Well, they lack 8/10 of being up there with their teammate Mark Martin.
But this team I think this is their G2, man. They're not too worried about these first 26 races. Just want to be in the top 12 when we get to Richmond.
It's interesting to compare the 2008 seasons of Jimmy Johnson and Kyle Busch because they were almost completely opposite. One dominated the regular season and the other came on like gangbusters in the chase. And who ended up with the big bucks and the Sprint Cup trophy?
Yeah, when you think about all those wins that Kyle Busch had last year, it's hard to believe when he won the other day at Las Vegas. That was his first win since August at Watkins Glen. He did not win from August to the rest of the year.
Let's check with Matt.
And Mike, normally Fridays at about 3 o'clock we're rolling off of qualifying right here on Speed, but tonight it'll be nighttime qualifying for Robbie Gordon, 20th on the board, and for you an early draw, but it's not really going to matter because we're going to be under darkness.
Yeah, we didn't get to go out with that first group to hit the racetrack. We were kind of in the second group, and you know, lose a little bit of time there. So the board really doesn't mean a lot. We're kind of judging off what Mark did his second time out. Got lucky tonight. If that would have been a draw in the daytime, that would have been worth about 3 or 4 tenths. And today in Sprint Cup racing, 3 or 4 tenths is the whole field. So thank God we're qualifying at 7 o'clock.
And for you, any off-road racing plans this year, and when and where?
Well, we did the Argentina Dakar Rally, and then we did Laughlin, finished 3rd and 1st so far this year. We got a race next weekend in San Felipe, so see if we can continue the championship lead.
Now, if we get Stevie to allow DW a little bit of time off, do you think maybe he could co-drive with you, or maybe you guys swap out who could drive and who could be the navigator?
DW in the dirt would be fun, let me tell you that. You know, I'd like to see him even drive the thing, because he was a wheelman, and he did a great job, you know, throughout all those years when they didn't have downforce. I mean, he'd pitch that thing sideways all over the place. So, you know, it'd be fun to watch him drive that monster truck.
Absolutely. Now, DW, we'll talk to Stevie. Maybe we can get you a kitchen pass to go out and play in the dirt.
Nah, I don't know, man. I think I'm more into monster truck racing these days. Yeah. Now that I got my big boy clothes and everything.
Oh, okay.
I don't know about that left side weight. Might be a little harder. Might be a little harder with a little pickup truck.
It's the front side weight I worry about.
Got to get one of those little bitty steering wheels.
Right.
But it would be fun to drive.
Yeah.
Those things are crazy.
All right, we saw David Gilliland, who's 28th, and here is Mark Martin, who is fastest. Now, what Robbie was comparing, his first run when he went on the track compared to Mark's second run came at the same time, and he was half a tenth quicker than Mark on Mark's second run. So that is what Robbie Gordon is choosing to use as a benchmark.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, you want to compare apples to apples. How many laps he had on his tires, what the track temp was. That's okay. I can live with that.
You know, Mike, what's interesting, you mentioned David Gilliland, who, of course, qualified for the last 2 races, actually had a great run at Las Vegas. Right now, he is the 5th from the bottom as far as the go-or-go homers, which would put him in. Mike Bliss is right behind him. What's the difference in their time? 6 1/1000ths of a second. And you know what? We can continue to see that week in and week out of who makes the show and who has to go home. John Andretti, the 34 car. This is a car that's locked into the show right now.
And here, based on practice speeds, are the drivers who are on the go-or-go-home list. And as Larry pointed out, it is just a couple of thousandths where the line is drawn right there. Okay, it's not really drawn right there. It's drawn right there. Sorry. 4 cars, not 5. Go home. Boy, I'm glad I wasn't at the Weather Channel this morning with you.
Here, you want to borrow these?
Yeah. Just need to get my counter finger working.
It's just a fine line to finish up.
Yep.
There you see owner, driver, and driver talking to each other. Ryan Newman talking to his teammate and his boss, Tony Stewart.
Yep. There's Bobby Hutchins in the blue shirt.
Ryan he'd like to settle on the pole here. That would put him He'd be the all-time track record or all-time pole holder here. He would beat Buddy Baker,
His mentor.
his mentor from day one.
Here's our Advanced Auto Parts Friday menu on Speed, following Practice NASCAR Live, and then you can test your NASCAR smarts at 5 o'clock, followed by who's on trackside?
Hey, we got David Ruderman. We got who else we got?
Casey Kane.
Casey Kane out.
And then Ricky Carmichael's going to maybe join us for a second.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, and then Sprint Cup qualifying, and here's Dick.
With Carl Edwards, we're yakking away, not paying attention to what we should be paying attention to on television. But that's because this guy has won 1/3 of his Sprint Cup starts here. That's 3 out of 9, and 3rd on the board right now. So we know the car is good. We know you're driving well. But what's the racetrack like?
Racetrack's great. It's real slippery. Steering right as much as you are left right now, and I hope it's like this on Sunday. That's what makes this place so much fun, you know. It's just a great racetrack. That Black Fusion's fast. It didn't feel very good, but Bob said it was pretty fast, and that's what it takes here. It doesn't have to feel real good, it just has to be fast.
Do you like it when the racetrack is nasty?
Yeah, I like it. I like these places that have some character, you know. There's seams and bumps, and the track's kind of worn out in different spots, and you know, there's shade and sun, and I mean it makes it cool, you know. It's like trying to find a sticky spot on a dirt track. It's a lot of fun.
Don't you like a racer that loves a challenge? Got one right here.
You know, I found out something about Dick Bergen that I did not know. I thought Dr. Bergen was just you know, something that people in racing called him, but he actually has a degree. He is actually a doctor of psychology.
He has a doctorate. When I met him, he was a college professor.
Yeah.
At a women's school in Boston. I'd go up there and audit the classes, and
Yeah.
we'd have a good time.
I just thought, you know, everybody said Dr. Dirt. I just thought he was a old racer, you know, from the past. I had no idea that he had a degree like that. But he's pretty smart, obviously.
Ah, yes.
Look
And
at
he
him.
finds himself here working with us.
And he's hunting more information as we
That's
speak.
right.
Never quits.
Nobody prepares for these shows
Any
like
show.
Dr. Bergen.
It's like when you do the race out in Irvindale.
Yeah.
I mean, Doc, he's got all the statistics. He knows all the information about the cars, the drivers.
And what doesn't end up on the air ends up in Speedway Illustrated, his magazine.
That's right.
So that's great. None of it goes to waste.
Not at all. Now, Jamie McMurray, the 26 car, pretty quick so far.
Yep.
He's run a total of 20 laps, but it possibly looks like Donnie Wingo in that group. They've maybe put this thing in qualifying trim now here with about a little less than 30 minutes to go. He's 6th quickest.
He's going to have to make Don. Ooh, step that little.
Way better than I thought it'd be.
That little. They got the little COT hop they do coming off the corner.
He was so sick last Sunday. I saw him in the hotel after the race there at check-in, and he looked like somebody that needed to be in a hospital bed with an IV hooked up.
Wow.
I mean, he was just horrible sick, but you know, having a good run is, I mean, you've seen it, it'll make you feel a whole lot better. And I guess it did make him feel a whole lot better. Then he got out of the car.
Yeah, well, that's your get well soon card right there when you're in that race car.
But that save he had coming off turn 2 about midway through that race was unbelievable.
I talked to him about that. He couldn't believe it. That, you know, he said that after that car stopped sliding sideways and it started in turn 1 and ended up in the backstretch when he got it straightened out, he said it took him 2 full laps to get his rhythm back.
Bet.
Yeah.
And after that one.
Wonder if he's ever done any drifting. Because that looked like one of those drifting cars going around a corner.
Looked like Vaughn Gittin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was getting it all right.
Yeah. Okay, and I'll repeat this again Sunday for the people who noticed and made a big point of it. It was the pace car was not a 2010 Shelby Mustang. I screwed that up. The minutia of that is that all these Shelby Mustangs have the snake on the driver's side of the grill. The 2010 will have it on the passenger side of the grill, because there's a big air intake on the driver's side of the grill where they would have put it otherwise. And it was an 09, it wasn't an 010. And slap my hand. I was wrong.
Yeah,
so there's really people that picked up on that, though.
There's a whole couple of Shelby message boards and other places I stumbled across.
But that's all your fault.
It's big. It is all my fault.
You are the expert.
No, I'm an enthusiast. I'm not an expert.
When we see you at Barrett Jackson and you pick those cars apart and you know detail that nobody else knows, then you say, then that's why you're held to a higher standard.
Well,
unfortunately for you.
You're right, and it's on my shoulders.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, we had a 2010 Mustang as the pace car for the Gatorade races in Daytona, so it just stood to reason that they'd have the 2010 in Las Vegas. Unfortunately, reason doesn't translate to fact all the time.
I think Darrell's point, I could have called it a Pinto and they wouldn't have thought twice about it.
That's right. Yeah, but I goofed.
Well, you're forgiven in the booth, I can tell you that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. How about Shelby, though? How'd you like to be 86 and doing what he's doing and having so much fun with it,
Yeah,
and still making a difference in people's enjoyment of their cars?
I loved him when you woke him up to the fact that he might want to think about what his legacy needs to be. He
Yeah.
said, I might ought to be thinking about that.
Well, that was kind of a pat answer, because he told me later off camera, he says, Mike, I just never think about that. You know, I'm just too busy getting on with life. And what was it, Satchel Paige, the pitcher, said, don't look back. Something might be gaining on you. It's a good philosophy. So Mark Martin, don't look back. Juan Pablo's gaining on you. How about that? Teams push the limit of speed and strategy too far, too fast. The consequence is bigger than ever. It's not a replay of last week's Las Vegas race. It's Bull Run with Bill Goldberg, an all-new episode Thursday night at 10 Eastern, only on Speed. So the mock qualifying runs continue. Juan Pablo Montoya up to second on the board. Casey Kane up to fourth. Robbie Gordon to ninth. Martin Truex to 10th. Business is picking up.
Yeah, but you know, Casey Kane being up there, I talked to him last night about the mile and a half. You know, what was it, 06, I think he won almost every mile and a half we went to. Yeah. And this being one of them. So it doesn't surprise me to see him running well there. Obviously, give him something to go. He can make it go.
Matt Kenseth would just like to go all day after first, worst. His 3 races this season with that blown engine on lap 6.
You know, Mike, I was telling you before the show, I had the pleasure of talking with Jack Roush this morning, the owner of this car. Of course, all the cars run the Roush Yates engines. And, you know, in short form, he basically said, as we were talking, the RPM there just caught them off guard. And he was disappointed because one of his cars actually did the tire test there. So he said, we're going to take blame that we didn't pay close enough attention at that tire test to see what this RPM was going to do. But I specifically talked to him about the 17 car, and I said, Jack, I know you and Doug Yates, you have to have a very extensive checking process of your engines on race morning. I've got to believe that 17 engine was in trouble after practice on Saturday. He said, Larry, no doubt. And you will see a much more extensive leak down test, maybe the bore scope looking down in the cylinders on race morning here this weekend.
Casey Mears and the 07.
Hey,
David Pearson.
What is he doing here?
105 wins. A driver that Sports Illustrated ranked as the best NASCAR driver of all time.
Put me on that list. I raced with him, and I raced with most all the guys that the great ones, and that right there was the coolest cat that ever sat behind the steering wheel of a stock car.
And you know, Richard Petty is the king with 200 wins. But when you look at David Pearson, he has about half the wins of Richard Petty, 105 to 200, but David Pearson has about half the starts of Richard Petty. So the win ratio to races run is pretty equal.
Yeah, and when you think about him, you think about the 21 car.
Absolutely.
And as I said, they didn't run all the races. But when they showed up, you could just about say, well, wonder who will run second today.
Yeah, that's one of his sons, Ricky, there on the left.
And he still looks pretty darn good. He still looks like he might want to get in there and crank out a few laps. He was awesome here at Atlanta.
Wouldn't surprise me, not at all. Here's Matt.
Hey, Mike, an update on the MWR cars. All 3 top 25 or better. Michael Waltrip, he says the car, and I quote, incredibly loose is what Michael was telling Booty Barker's crew chief. It's not even really close. They've made a lot of changes the last 2 times in, getting ready to go back out now. And basically, though, he says if he could just get the car a little more on the tighter side, this car is going to be pretty stout for qualifying later tonight.
Thank the Lord for the nighttime.
Yeah. Quickest Toyota right now is Brian Vickers, who is 6th. Mark Martin, that lap he laid down early, is still the fastest one of the day. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice brought to you by Toyota. For the latest Toyota racing information, visit toyotaracing.com. Toyota, moving forward. We saw David Pearson earlier. The reason Pearson is here is he's helping promote the celebration that's going to occur in May at Lowe's Motor Speedway in Charlotte. They are celebrating 50 years of racing at the Speedway, and what is it going to be, 61 years of racing in Charlotte, where NASCAR's first strictly stock race was held at the Charlotte Fairgrounds over off Wilkerson Boulevard, near where the airport is now. That happened in 1949.
Yeah, this is Atlanta. I believe I'm correct. I believe this is the 100th race here in Atlanta. It is.
Well, I was hoping to make this Sunday's Aflac trivia question, but I guess the cat's out of the bag now. Not counting qualifying races, which they have at Daytona, these are the tracks that have hosted the most Sprint Cup Series races, and recognize that Darlington is now down to 1 race a year, or it would be right up there with Martinsville.
Yeah. You know where the first track was in Atlanta?
Oh, Lakewood? Was it Lakewood Speedway?
That was one of them, but the first one was a track. It built over where the Hartsville Airport is,
really?
Where the big airport is. There was I think a 2-mile dirt track over there.
Wow.
Back like early 19 something. Wow. Now, was it Lakewood?
Lakewood Speedway was one of them, I believe.
Yeah, that was a big race. I think it was 2 mile too, wasn't it? Or a mile, maybe it was. It was a mile dirt. Yeah,
a mile.
It was. Yeah, it was a mile dirt.
Yep.
And that was a big, fast dirt track.
And
obviously,
one of NASCAR's most famous early car owners is from here, Raymond Parks.
Yeah.
And Raymond will be honored tomorrow in a ceremony for the NASCAR Hall of Fame, where they're going to talk about donations and collections of memorabilia to be displayed in the Hall of Fame. There's a press conference on that here at the Speedway tomorrow.
A lot of history in the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
A lot of drivers from Atlanta. The reason I know some of this stuff is I was listening to some show this morning and on the radio, and they were talking about all the great drivers that had come to the Atlanta area. And the reason that Charlotte ended up being the hub of the sport was because of Holman and Moody. When Ford Motor Company set them up to be their official distributor for all the racing parts and pieces and cars, everybody kind of migrated down to Charlotte.
And it was a convenient place to put your garage because it kind of minimized the towing distance to a lot of the racetracks, not all of them, but a lot of them were close by. Here's Montoya, who is second fastest.
A couple of cars ago, Mike, we just saw Scott Riggs in the 36 car, and if you notice, as your ticker comes across the top, you're going to see that he is 16th quickest. But what's significant is the fact that he's the first car with the yellow chiclet right there, which means he's basically the fastest of the go-homers.
Let's update them for you. I won't put the arrow in, but the fellows who have work to do are Mike Bliss, Todd and Jeffrey Bodine, and Jeremy Mayfield.
And as we look at our fast cars, Mark Martin leading the way here at a 30-18. Kurt Busch is slid in there, second place now. Stremmy's right there with him.
Todd Bodine's car will not start. So let's see. Let's get an update on Mark Martin from, who would be one of his contemporaries downstairs? Dick Berggren.
Yeah, you're right. About the same age, I wish. Mark Martin set the fast time this afternoon in the very first lap he ran out here, Mike. He's only run a total of 9 laps, and nobody else so far has been able to go as quick as he has. Mark has had a lot of success at this place, winning twice in Sprint Cup competition, 3 times in nationwide competition. And like Carl Edwards, he likes the racetracks difficult and loves this place. He should be a factor in the race on Sunday, as long as the engine holds together. Chief engine builder Jeff Andrews moments ago told me that last week in Vegas, it was a rod bearing that started Mark's problems. The engine let go before the transmission.
Yeah, there's so much been said about the Toyota engine problems and the engine problems of Roush Fenway. This 5 car has had engine problems 2 weeks in a row. And one thing I do need to definitely clear up is we thought we heard radio transmission where Mark said the transmission came out of gear. Well, we kind of immediately thought, well, the RPM must have spiked up there, and that's what maybe over-revved the engine and blew it up. What Mark actually said, it vibrated so bad when the engine let go that the transmission came out of gear just from the vibration.
Two Dodges, 3 Chevys atop the speed chart, then Carl Edwards Ford and Brian Vickers Toyota. Greg Biffle just had a wild slide out of turn number 4.
You could see, like Larry and I were saying, we poked each other. You could see that one coming.
Way back in the middle of 3 and 4.
He's up there again doing the same thing. He drove it in there so hard the car wouldn't stay down for him, and he just basically dirt tracked it off turn 4 then.
And that was the beginning of starting a run, and he almost got back to his quickest lap. His fast lap is a 30.53. That was a 30.54 he ran there.
That's a whole lot of sliding around to be doing when you're at 181 miles an hour. Just about 8 minutes to go in this practice session. Qualifying coming up later this evening. Georgia Power qualifying night right here on Speed.
You know what? I wish they'd make the tires really smoke. Because some of these cars, the shape they get out in and the way they get sideways, and it'd be cool if the tires would smoke like those drifting cars do. They could build that into a tire, couldn't they?
I would think so. Kevin Harvick up to second on the board with a lap of 30.25.
Now he's getting that's a little closer to Mike or to Mark. He's a 30.18 Mark is, and that was a 30.25 for Kevin. So he cut one of those tenths off.
Dave Blaney right now, he is 35th quickest. Definitely one of the racetracks, no matter what Dave has been driving, that he's always liked this racetrack. He's always run very well here.
Well, he would have should have won a race here when he was driving for Bill Davis.
If he just hadn't lost his wheel. He picked the fine time to leave me loose wheel.
He had a good car that day. It was a good car.
Brian Vickers climbs to third.
That's a 25.9 to Kevin's 25.3 to Mark's 18. So yeah, it's getting a little tighter to top.
Well, early in practice there were 23 drivers within 1 second of the fastest lap, and now there are 45 drivers within 1 second of the fastest lap as everybody steps it up.
I think Jimmy Johnson might be there's Casey Kane. He's one of the guys that's up there in 7th place. And I know they've been working on that 48 car too, man. They've been in and out. They haven't quite gotten it up to speed yet. Jimmy Johnson back in 26th spot. Very uncharacteristic of this car to be that far back in qualifying.
Now he's just come out for a run. His quickest lap, you see it on the screen, 30.76.
Yeah, he has 15 starts here, and of those 15 starts, 9 of them have been top 10 starts for this 48 team.
Looks like it's getting around there pretty sporty right now.
Well, we're getting down to crunch time now. This is where you put your sticker tires on, your brand new tires, you cool it down, you tape it up, and you throw your best shot at it. He jumped up to 14th quickest at a 30.53.
Big improvement.
Dick?
Well, car number 16, Greg Biffle, is in the garage right now, and I'm going to get out of here because they're about ready to power time this thing. And as he got out of the car, I asked Biffle how it was, and he's had a terrible vibration in that thing. So bad, Mike, it has broken the shift lever in half. And he said it's about the same every week.
The Roush Fenway cars, they have a lot of vibration issues, it seems like, week in and week out for some reason.
Five minutes to go in pre-qualifying practice. Tickets are still available for Sunday's Kobalt Tools 500. The phone number is there on your screen. Good seats remain. The race is not sold out. And oh, by the way, next week or in 2 weeks, we go to Bristol Motor Speedway. They are not sold out. So it's been a while since tickets have been available this close to the race date for Bristol. So if you'd like to come to Atlanta this weekend, call the number on your screen. We'd love to see you here at the Kobalt Tools 500. The drivers who must qualify on time, no change in the bottom 4, Mike Bliss, Jeremy Mayfield, and the Bodine brothers.
And what's interesting, for the first time since Daytona, if Tony Stewart qualifies on time, Bill Elliott would be eligible for the championship provisional, or vice versa. Tony's eligible for it no matter what.
Right. Dick Dale Jr.'s jumped up to 13th with his last run.
Yeah, but he's not happy with the car yet. Quote, man, I'm all over the track. It's tight, pretty tight. Can't tell how much because I'm riding on the splitter. Junior's still not even remotely happy with that race car.
Well, they made it better, Doc, because he did pick up some pretty good time. He's up to 13th at a 30.52. His car did look better, but obviously still not to his liking. See, this guy's got to pick it up. Bill Elliott's way back here in the 43rd spot right now. And if Tony Stewart's in 34th spot, you know, they're flirting around with Tony's flirting around with needing a champion's provisional. That'd be bad news for Bill, unless he can get his speed up.
Well, we're pretty close to the end of this session, just about a minute to go, less than a minute actually.
Mike, you were trying to sell tickets to the race for the boys here. What's interesting, you know, you go back a year ago, the big souvenir sale was overcoats and raincoats. Looks like to me this Sunday it might be sunscreen, because it's going to be nice out here.
A good day to come to the races. And now if you've not been to Atlanta in a long time, and I know there are people that have not, because traffic here used to be a real issue, getting out of the racetrack, getting in. But since they've opened Bruton Smith Parkway, Georgia Route 20 over to I-75, that has taken a lot of the load off of US 19 and 41 that runs by the front of the racetrack. So I think you'll find yourself with a much more enjoyable experience with the road improvements that have been made in the surrounding area.
This is one of those racetracks you need to come to. And I tell you what, it's one that we always like to come here. When you're on pit road, you can see the back straightaway. You can see the whole racetrack from anywhere down on pit road or in the grandstand. Got a great viewing here at the Atlanta racetrack.
Well, a lot like at Las Vegas last week, Mark Martin laid that number up there at the very beginning of practice, and it stuck the whole time.
Hearing a lot of talk about Kevin Harvick this week. He's a former Atlanta winner, and look, he's right up on the chip in practice as well.
Talked about David Stremme earlier about how he's kind of snuck in here and pretty solid week in and week out, sitting 4th quickest after this practice. Kyle Busch, the winner from Las Vegas, about mid-pack right now.
It's all in the luck of the draw now, Larry. Who goes out? What time we qualified? 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it should be pretty equal for everybody. Those first few guys may suffer a little bit, but go late, be good.
Our coverage of NASCAR's weekend in Atlanta continues later today right here on Speed with Sprint Cup qualifying. Then tomorrow, the Camping World Truck Series qualifying right here on Speed, then Sprint Cup practice, and then the Camping World Truck Series race. Sunday begins with NASCAR race day on Speed. The Sprint Cup Series race is the Kobalt Tools 500 on Fox, and then NASCAR Victory Lane back here on Speed. John Roberts on the other side.